Do you remember Radio Shack back when it was an actual store that didn't just sell cell phones, but sold things like radio control cars? I certainly do, and this was my first. I found it. I did it. So this wasn't actually my first radio control car. This is the same one, and I got it on eBay. I found it after I made the last video, just kind of reminiscing about it. And it doesn't come with the actual transmitter. Most of them didn't. There were a few on there, but they wanted way too much money. But I got this one for $50 delivered, and it was really just more of a nostalgia thing for me. So back in the day, Radio Shack had all kinds of stuff, including radio control vehicles. What kind of stuff do you remember getting there? I definitely looked at computers at the time. They were too expensive for a child, of course, to purchase, but they had all sorts of electronics. You had, you know, the drawers where you could open up, and as a child, I didn't utilize that quite as much as I definitely would today. But I remember a couple times having projects needing resistors. I had one of those little kits that's like, you could make 100 different electronics with it or whatever, and one of them was a like a buzzer, an alarm they called it, or I mean there was just all kinds of little things you could do with the kits. Timers, you could do, you know, square wave or you know, all sorts of like noise makers. I remember one time I had a stepmother that was going through the drawers in my house, in my room, and I caught her by essentially making these little electronic kits that I got from Radio Shack into an alarm system, and then I wired it up on the drawer where when it was contacting that it wouldn't buzz, and then when you open the drawer that it would buzz. And I came back, of course, later that day to the room, and the electronics had been all taken apart. Well, because she couldn't get it to stop without taking it all apart, and I had hidden it, and you know, I was in third grade, so of course there was no big deal to it, but I was like, I'm gonna catch you, and I did. So Radio Shack, all sorts of fun stuff. And tell me what kind of fun stuff that you like to get into in the back in the day Radio Shack. And I got it, and I realized when I was a kid, I did a lot of work to my vehicle. And this was way before I was into hobby grade type stuff or making crawlers or anything, but this was my first one, my very first one. And as you can see, it actually has open diffs, but the front and the rear are somehow connected in a way to where it's like, it's locked on the same side and then open diff left to right, which is kind of weird, but it made it to where, you know, if you're going up something and the front would unload, it would unload on the one side, but the other side would keep pulling. And so you could kind of like weave back and forth and end up getting up an object. If I was more crafty as a kid, I would have locked up the diffs, but it of course broke a gear set for me, probably jumping it or something like that as a kid. But just kind of looking at it, a little bit of nostalgia here. We got no ball bearings on any of these parts. We have no steering trim. It does have metal cast knuckles, which is pretty cool. And then we got our battery tray down here, which I had a little set of rechargeables. They didn't last really long, and they took a long time to charge, but it was still fun, you know. And it wasn't certainly like the hobby grade, but again, you know, a kid just getting into it, I spent so many hours driving it. We've got our 2-speed that I was telling you about. We've got our fast and slow, F and S, so you can really hear in the low gear how fast that motor and the gears are spinning. There we go. And then in our fast speed, a lot slower speed for the motor to go, which of course would make you go fast. It would be really interesting to put hobby grade stuff in this. One more project for me to not do. So when I was a kid, I actually did some modifications to this, and I want to say that mine actually it was a chrome roll bar here and lights on it. They actually have Hella branded lights, which is pretty funny. But I took this bumper off. I do remember that specifically, and I took the wing off too. It actually does bolt into this roll cage. And I want to say that I had cut this roll cage as well, because there was still this roll bar on mine and it didn't have like the full roll cage piece. And maybe I am remembering it slightly incorrectly, but this is the exact sticker kit that mine had. which of course I took a lot of the stickers off as well. But this was the same sticker kit, and maybe there was a couple of trims that they came in, like one didn't have a wing and one did have a wing, and mine had like the chrome roll bars. It definitely had this wild V8 77 engine, which I have no clue what that would represent in the real world. Maybe you'll know. I'm not a full-size type of guy, but I ended up taking that off as well. I do remember as a child, because for some reason I just didn't like that gaudy, you know, block your vision sort of V8 with, you know, we got just straight headers coming out right here. It's it's fun for a kid. So what body would you say? What does this look like? I think it's like a Ford F-150. Although the cab, for the year that it is, like a 70s style cab. For the grill, I'm sorry, yeah, 70s style grill, but the cab is kind of slanted on the 70s ones. It doesn't have that second window, and it, you know, maybe they just took some artistic licensing so that they didn't have to license the real thing. That totally looks like a Ford F-150 to me. What do y'all think? Yes, the good old days before we had things like responsibilities, right? So there we go. That's it. A couple more things. We have our on-off switch in the bed right here. Kind of a weird spot for all of this, but you know, child fingers, they can reach in there no problem. And then we have our charge port, which you probably can't see at all, located down here. And I'm assuming that Radio Shack would have sold something like a kit where it would come with an applicable plug, and then you throw in your nickel metal hydride or your NiCads or whatever it would be at the time. I guess it'd be NiCads at the time. You throw those into there and you know, just kind of like boop and charge it. So yeah, we had one where you took them all out and you had to put them into a wall charger sort of situation. Probably like charging, if I remember, I was like charging 2 at a time, but it took 6, so I had to like double charge. Yeah, it takes 1, 2, 3, 4, is that 5? I think that's just 5 in there. 1, 2, 3, yeah, 5. Takes 5 of them. So there we go. The Radio Shack, whatever. I don't even know what it's called. Off-roader, 4x4 off-road. That's probably what it's called. All right. Oh, we got a sticker on the back. Does it say what model it is? Made in Singapore. Radio Shack, a division of Tandy. Do you remember the Tandy computers? I do. Does it say? It says it only takes 4 C-size batteries. But there are clearly enough room for 5 in there. Oh, there's a 9-volt that would go down on the inside, and I forget what that was for. Like a sound kit or something? Or was that the radio? Yeah, I'm getting sidetracked now. Yeah, this is a conundrum. Obviously, I don't have perfect memory of being a 10-year-old child anymore. Jeez, what's going on? So there we go. The Radio Shack off-roader 4x4 V8 Wild 77. Yes, that's what we'll call it. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great day.
Yeah, I forgot about the little kits you could like buy, little piezo buzzers and
yeah,
full head schematics and all this.
Yep.
They were like $10, but that was a lot back then.